How much freedom of speech do we have in America? Some people think it's absolute, and some people, as we're finding out, are proving that it is not. And I would like to present that I have a differing opinion than a lot of people that are talking about this case. And I know every pundit says that, but let's get into it. Welcome to The Tradesman. So first off, I'm going to tell you the story, and I'm going to tell you where I've been seeing people going with this story. And even though it's kind of a dead story at this point because it's past, and of course the news media cycle is insane now, I kind of wanted to bring it up for a reason. So there was a woman by the name of Shiloh Hendricks in Rochester, Minnesota. Now, this is not to defend someone who says bad words, bad things, right, or negative stuff. But I want to ask a question. For those of you that are in the trades and work in the real world, you understand the world that we live in sometimes, and I hear things all the time, nonstop, and have ever since I got into the trades, that would probably make HR's hair curl. And the question becomes, are we okay, or are they okay with saying those things, or could they be thrown in jail too? Now, this lady was convicted on disorderly conduct and I'm going to play it out to you. I'm going to tell you how they phrase it, and I'm going to tell you how I see it. So they're saying, and this is the medium, that Shiloh went to a spot where she had some toys for her child set aside. A child took those toys, a child who, by the way, is 8 years old, took those toys from that place. And when she found out, she called him a racial slur. We all kind of know where this is heading when I say that the person is black. Now, Shiloh is white. Should she have called the child that? No, absolutely not. That is, in my opinion, unforgivable, but that's on a different level. Because of that, a Somali man decides that he's going to record her. And he begins to record her, trying to get her to say it again, except to him this time. And he's instigating and pursuing her, constantly trying to get her to repeat the word. And as the story goes, she ends up calling out the slurs to him as well, which gets her then the disorderly conduct. The question, and I'm going to kind of change the expression of this. This is Minnesota. Minnesota already has an invasion going on. That cannot be denied. And if you were to have these invasions going on in your neighborhood, you would understand and agree that this is over the top. This is a situation that the kettle is being excited and on fire and overboiling because of the politicians in the area that are allowing / wanting this to happen because they want the influence of all the Somalis coming in. And you can even look at Tim Walz, who's getting in trouble in Minnesota because of all the stuff that was allowed to go on. Now let me change this perspective a little bit. Here is a woman who's already dealing with this nonsense all the time in her area. And then an 8-year-old child, and I have a 7-year-old child. An 8-year-old child knows not to touch someone else's stuff, or should know that. But here's the problem. Because we're bringing in people from other cultures, maybe he doesn't know that. And then that becomes a question of, well, whose fault is for not knowing? Is it ours or theirs? Should we just be okay with people that are willing to break in, steal, and all that other kind of stuff? No, we shouldn't. And that's from a different perspective again. So the young child does that. She calls out her slur in frustration and anger, I'm sure. No defense of her, absolutely. No matter what, you don't do that to a child. And the man overhears her, or is told later, pursues her, actively, viciously pursues a woman with a child in her arms. And if you're a mother, ask yourself this. How upset would you be of someone after you've already been offended and bothered? And something taken from your child, and I'm very protective of my child, believe me. To then be pursued by a man who's filming you, trying to get you in trouble, and you know he's trying to get you in trouble. At some point, you're going to lose and blow your top. And she did, and she said things. And we would think, well, in defense of herself, why wouldn't she be able to say things? Even if they're horrible things. In defense of herself of being pursued by a man, who we find out later was arrested for, I believe, molesting a 15-year-old. So not a great guy, obviously. Somalis, unfortunately, have a very heavy problem in that area and in fraud. That doesn't mean that all of them are that way, but it does mean that there's a cultural problem there. So she's sentenced to a misdemeanor disorderly conduct, which carries 90 days in jail and a $1,000 fine, because apparently her saying those slurs was considered disorderly conduct. Not the guy who's pursuing a helpless, not harmless, but like unable to protect herself woman. No. It's the man, the woman that's being assaulted, basically. Now, again, this is, you could say you are so upset, and I would agree with you, but this is the world that we're in. This is happening in England, where a guy who was stabbed was the one that was arrested. This happened a lot, unfortunately. Recently, even more so. Where the bad guys keep getting more and more chances, and the good guys don't get any chances at all. And she is not a good guy. I'm not saying that here at all. But I'm pointing out that you have to test trials and what happens by the worst situations. And if they're willing to go after her for this, then the question becomes, what is the disorderly conduct? Can they determine that Christians on the corner yelling out Bible is disorderly because maybe a gay person hears it and doesn't like it? What about if someone out there is saying union stuff and a non-union person hears it and gets upset? Is that disorderly? What if it causes a fight? Or vice versa? What if a non-union person is yelling against the unions? I'm using it for a trade example, but what if we start having to ask ourselves, where is the line drawn there? If her just saying something in defense of herself as she's holding her baby, as this person is chasing her down with a camera, if that is considered disorderly, then where is the line drawn? And then I want to point out, and this is something interesting, and you all know that I watch a lot of shows out there, and my primary favorite shows have been, even though I don't agree with them anymore so much because they're so different from me, but I like to hear it because I like to hear differing opinions on this. And there was a court case that was brought up when I was listening to some of the people on the Daily Wire. And they mentioned the Supreme Court case which is Chaplinsky versus New Hampshire. And the court in this case in 1942 unanimously held that fighting words were not protected by the First Amendment, meaning personally directed insults likely to provoke an immediate breach of the peace can be punished. So if you say something that could potentially instigate a fight, you could be jailed for words. Again, I want to ask you, what are fighting words? What are fighting words? Where is the line drawn? If we don't have a line drawn, then some liberal judge gets to decide this. Some person who might have a problem with the particular conversation you're having. We already have this in harassment training. Okay, when you get the whole workplace hazards and harassment training, they tell you, well, even if you're talking about firearms and another third-party person overhears you talking about it and has an issue, not even the person with whom you're communicating, but the third-party person has a problem with it, then you can get in trouble. Where is the defining line? And how much freedom do we truly have in this blessed America that we believe in? And this is what I'm talking about. These cases, this situation is happening because the Rochester city there in Minnesota is pursuing this. If we don't win our cities, if we don't control our cities, then this power will continue to go to the crazies and the wackos who are willing to control your city for you. This is why I'm here. The tradesman. Now, I apologize. I've been gone. I've been dealing with a lot of stuff. We went out for a wedding, and I had to get a lot of stuff prepared, and I was exhausted, and I was doing stuff around the house trying to get things ready. But that's why I'm back. That's why I'm back. Because these kind of things matter, and if we're going to do something about it, we're going to do something about it. And if not, then we might as well go quietly and die off in the sun as the sun sets and let them take over. But we're not going to do that because you're a hard worker who works for your family. You're a hard worker who works for your company, who works to make sure that everybody's life around you is better. And I know you because I've seen you. I've worked with you. I know you're tired. I'm tired. I know it's hard. But if we work together and we continue to grow this channel, then we can get more and more influence out there for us, the common person, not to be handed stuff like Zoran Mondani wants to just hand stuff out to people, which is going to destroy the city. And I'll get to that in a later episode. But I want, and you want, and we want the chances, the fair chances, to be able to stand up, defend ourselves, have a good life for our families, and have a good job for our families and ourselves. That's what we're asking for. Enough of the crap that's coming in. Enough of it. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help. We're at 134 subscribers, which I'm surprised I didn't lose any over this whole hiatus that I've been in. But I ask you, If you like what you see, subscribe and share. And let's get more people on there. It really, 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 really does help encourage me, helps me to sign in, because this is very hard. It's very, very, very hard to do this. The editing, the everything else takes so much time. It does. But I want to make a difference, and I know you do too. Now get some rest, because I know you're tired.